So we're in the final week of Sprint 21, which means it is ending today. Um, and then this is what we're doing in Sprint 21, measurable skills gain. We're doing some upgrades to the nickname, duplicate customer search upgrades, creating customer records. There's a lot of stuff in there. We've got some responsive screen upgrades so that our menu doesn't get wonky when we have smaller screens. Um, Working in applications, data migration, entities and entity locations, setting those assets up for that. We have a few upgrades in entity management, ETPL kind of stuff, um, service collection and services management. Now, and then I'll tell you about discovery, but the next sprint, we're moving into a 4-week sprint instead of a 2-week sprint. So that'll end, I believe, on January 9th. And the reason we're doing that is because in the next 2 weeks, there's a lot of outage. So from our team, so we want to make sure we had some time there to get everything in, but it does put a lot of development in a sprint. So 4 weeks. When we come out of that sprint, we're going to discuss it on our side. We haven't really discussed it. So if I'm a big fat liar, then that's sorry. But we're probably going to start thinking about another UAT session after we come out of that. We'll set you up with like release 2. I'm hoping that we'll have enough feature sets in there to have another UAT. If it's not going to be that, it would probably be 2 weeks after, but hopefully we will be able to do that. Okay, continue discovery. We're going to have a lot of discovery. You're going to see some stuff today that you're probably going to like to see with the customer career plan, I believe it is. And then we're working on intake applications. ETPL is getting a long ways along. So probably the next session with you folks, I will be able to walk through that training program and let you see that add edit training program, all those screens. I should be able to do that next week or whenever we meet again. I think it's next week. Okay, that's where we're at on status. If there's any questions, don't hesitate to either speak up or put them in the chat. And I'm going to turn it over to Olivia to show you some cool stuff.
Hey y'all. So today I'm going to be walking through some universal career plan stuff with you all. I have two things that I want to show you today. We are still kind of working through this with the state, so I don't have everything finalized, but it is put together enough that we wanted to start getting your eyes and feedback on it. So as we keep working through it, we have that information in mind. Um, we have not got into all the business logic yet. So we know there are going to be certain things that happen in the application or assessments that we want to auto-populate to inform the career plan in various ways. That is a part we haven't quite started yet. We're going to be moving into um, more of the application stuff. We got a document out and we're going through that, and we're gonna be having some meetings with the state and then bring that to you all. And as we have both the career plan and the application up in discovery, we're really going to be tying those together and how they talk back and forth and pass information to make a more intuitive experience for the career planners and the end users overall. Right now, we're really looking more at um, the career plan, the UI, and how you would interact, the career planner would interact with the career plan and manually add things that wouldn't be informed by an assessment or an application, because we know as they continue to talk with the individual and get to know them, things might come up, goals might change, objectives might change, things like that. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into the mock-ups, and then I have an Excel document that we're going to walk through. So the screen we're looking at right here is an example of what we are planning to see once I have went into a customer's profile and selected a specific application to go into for the customer. So if they have, a WIOA adult application, we'd go into what IWDS calls it is their application menu. So we would go into this specific application, we would be able to have, and this, what area do you want to work in? We would have intake where you would do more of their application work and be able to have an overview and summary of all that information. That is something we're going to be working on next. Then we also have our career plan, which is where we're at, and then we'll have another one for exits and outcomes. So right now, within this customer's application, we're in their career plan area. We want to have career plan phases. We haven't really talked this through, but we think it would be nice to have like big bucket phases that somebody would be working through their career plan. So you can kind of see where they're at in the process. Have they just, do they have just like a career plan stood up? Have they actively started engaging, enrolling services, different things like that? We still need to talk through what those phases might be. If you guys have any ideas or would like to know where folks might be at specific places and their career plan, definitely that's feedback we want from you all, so we can have those when we start talking through the phases a little more. And then we have career plan action items. So these are specific action items that we want to call to attention that either have not been started, have been started, are completed, or maybe require action. That's something that's pulled based on an assessment or a data point from the application that we need a flag as, hey, this needs to be addressed as part of their career plan. Again, we have not got into what all of these might be, but this is another area where we want your feedback of what kind of action items would you like to see called to attention so that the career planners can make sure those don't fall off of their list or get forgotten about and all the ins and outs and intricacies of the career plan. And then as we scroll down here, this top section is going will remain. And then as we scroll down, we're going to have different sections of the career plan. We'll be able to review the customer's data, and we'll be able to have a summary of application information. So as we go through the application, we're going to identify the various data points that we would want to summarize and pull into this page so that the career planners don't have to like go back to the application and check various things that might be extremely relevant to the career plan that they build for their customer. And then we'll have summary of assessment information. So any assessments that are added either through the application or if they need to add one, they can add it here. But it will be a summary of the various assessments that have been added for this customer in their results, as well as it will pull in assessment information from the customer's Illinois WorkNet profile that's synced with their IWDS account. So you'll be able to see things like their skill and interest surveys, if they did the disability benefits estimator calculator, employment 101, different things like that. And it will also pull information from the application. We might determine that some of these are more relevant to be summarized up here and remove them from the bottom. But this is currently information we're pulling. Christy, I see you have your hand raised.
Hi, yeah, just a quick question about the assessment. So is there going to be an assessment part of this that we could fill out here, or is the assessment on Illinois WorkNet, or it's both?
Both. So we will have like the general Illinois WorkNet assessments that the customer can do, but here um, we'll have places in the application where appropriate, where customers are, where the assessments are directed, especially for youth who have to have those in. And then you can add them here. And then we'll also have participant summary tools, the assessments available at all times on this left-hand panel, because we know assessments can happen throughout the life of the program. So there'll be a couple different ways you can get to it. And the ones that we get through IWDS, like you could add their TABE and CASAS results. We're thinking about also including a assessment for folks going into training. I think they're wanting to call it like a training assessment that's kind of like a checklist that can make sure that you got the required steps done in order for them to enroll in training. So these ones will be more set for a career planner to complete. And then on the worknet side, when we need customers to complete those, we'll have those over on the worknet side for the customer to do through their worknet account and then pull them into the IWDS.
That sounds really good. Thank you so much.
And then the next tab I want to show you, so I don't have all these filled out yet. The big one we want to talk today is about setting goals. So this is where we have put most of our work so far. And I have a couple different examples that I want to show you for how we can manage this. I'm going to do a lot of talking and then open it up because I want to give you guys context of how this will work. So we're going to be able to establish goals, objectives, and then add services and activities to those objectives. We're going to hold off on the add-in services. I'll talk about it at a high level, but that's not part of what we've really got into yet. We want to give folks the ability to add goals, and we have a couple different views of how we can do that. So we have this more blocky view where you can see a lot of the data points in a table here around the different goals that have been, you can add them, you can see what you've added and edit them or remove them. Same with objectives, but you can see here the objectives are broken down by the goal type. So for employment to become a CDL driver, here's the objectives. For employment, just secondary example goal. Here's some example objectives. So I'd break it down by goal. And then same thing with services and activities, we would show broken down by goal. And then in the table, you can kind of see which objectives each of these services or activities tie to. It's not really a very pretty view. It's giving you a lot of data, but it's very blocky. And so another view we came up with that we wanted to run by you guys is much more visually friendly. So we have our key here. So we use icons to help identify what these are, as well as kind of a hierarchy, but we have our goals, our objectives, and our activities and services. And we can filter. So if you want to see all employment goals or all education goals, which we'll get into in a minute, you can do that. And then if you want to print this, you're like, I want to show absolutely everything, all the details I need to print this for the customer, for my records. You can check this box and it will auto force everything open so that you can see it all and print it. You have the ability to add goals and objectives here. And then down here is our view. So we would have our goal and then the objectives here that tie to that goal. You can see here are two, just like in the boxes above. And then when you under these, you would see the example, or I'm sorry, activities or services that have been tied to that objective. And then in this black text underneath it is all the details that were associated in the modal where we build these, which I'm going to show you next. And so that's what we're seeing here. And then when you open these little like arrow things, when you open them, that's what gives you the details. So initially you'll come in and you'll just kind of see your full listing. And then if you want to get in to see what are the start dates and statuses of all this, you can do that as well. We'll probably end up with more filters. So like the ability to filter and show me everything that's open or different things like that. So you can kind of manipulate your data a little more. But I'm going to pause right here and just get initial feedback on kind of your thoughts on the different views.
Olivia, there's a question in the chat.
Let me see here. So are you saying that the participant's application in the new IWDS will have assessment screens that career planner staff will complete, but the application will also link or possibly to upload or link any assessments that participants have completed within Illinois WorkNet? That would be great if we can do that. I would reduce toggling back and forth between the two sides. Yeah, so we want to, in 2.0, if I'm fully understanding your question, we'll have the ability to add assessment results. And if you want to upload copies of those, you can. But really what we want is the like assessment results entered into the assessment modal so the system can read them. And then we'll also pull workNet assessments that have been completed in workNet so that those are in the system as well. And you don't have to go and look and find them. It'll already be tied into the customer's account because we're syncing their workNet account with their IWDS ID.
Just a question on this. The blocky goals. So with those, you would not be able to do like show all details like you would on the bottom one.
You do, it's just right. These are the details that are shown on the bottom one. It's just showing in a table form instead
Okay.
of like in this paragraph.
Oh, I see.
Hmm. Yeah, and we'll have sort, if we go this route, we'll have sort columns here that you could like sort all open at the top or all closed at the top. Um, but this one down here, we can add those types of filters in so you can do a similar thing. We'll just be filtering because we don't have the table columns to sort on.
I have a
So
question.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So on the blocky ones, you have those buttons where it says action, and then you can edit, right? Uh, you have those down. Is that down here somewhere?
Yeah, so if we click on employment to become a CDL driver, it would open the modal to edit it. And then
Okay.
within the edit modal, there would be an option to delete it.
Okay. Thank you.
So you'll still have the same functionality. It'll just the icons aren't there. We had the icons in and it just looked a little much. There was a lot going on. So we'll train that, you can edit and get into these just by clicking them. That's why they look linked. It'll take you into that to do any changes.
So I have a quick question. So where it says your example activity at the bottom one, yes. So is that the only, like, so that's considered a service? And if it is a service, is that the only place we'll be able to see them or no?
No, we're gonna have a whole services tab.
Okay, oh, you did say that. Okay,
Yeah, they're wanting to, we might have activities and services. That's why they're named this way, like example activity, example service.
okay.
Um, I'm not really sure. We haven't got into the services. That's what Taylor is actually getting ready to start up that discovery work. But we
Hmm.
will have, when you add services, it's going to look a lot different than adding goals and objectives. And we're going to have a whole tab where we do that because it's a little more,
Hmm.
it's different than goals and objectives, but we will tie them all together so you can
Hmm.
see how the services are supporting the overall goals and objectives.
Hmm. And I just whatever, FYI, Career Connect looks blocky, like the top part. So I guess that's how we're kind of used to looking at it. However, I like the part below. It just seems a little more, I don't know. And it looks different, I guess. So, our IEP is very standard, the one we use all the time. It's exactly the same. So, I don't know, I kind of like the one at the bottom, but just my opinion.
Perfect. And that's what we're wanting. Just thoughts and feedback on which of these you'd like to see um, going into 2.0.
So the bottom one looks more personable. The top one's more, like industrial or whatever you want to call it. But
Mm-hmm.
um, up in the blocky ones, if you if you you have those action items, right? So if an action item is completed, will it show then on these blocks that it's been completed so you can track what still needs to be done for them? Or is that just a completion date? It would be just shown by the completion date?
So are you talking about these?
No, down below, right there.
Yeah. Oh,
So
actual
it would just
completion
be,
date?
yeah, it would just be that completion date that, okay.
Yep,
I
that
didn't see
that date would show right there, and then the status would show complete. And then this example, planned actual completion date wouldn't show as an A, it would have it, and then it would show complete.
Okay,
Yeah, and
so,
go ahead.
yeah, so for, that kind of stats, it's easier to view it in the graph form or the block form than it is in the outline form.
Mm-hmm. And we could do something, we could look into like some kind of icon over like on the side, since we're not gonna have the edit and deletes, like for statuses. So like if they're completed, they have a green check mark, and if they're not started, they have something else. So you can more visually see like, hey, what all am I done with? Or maybe we kind of gray them out a little bit when they're complete, and the not started or open ones are a little more brighter, so hey, that's what I'm still working on. Go
Mhm.
ahead, Roy or Rory.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had a call that came in real quick, so I was kind of trying to listen to both. So sorry, this is a dumb question. You probably said I missed it. The two views that we're talking about, the table view with the rows, and then this one that you currently have, is it? You're not asking like which one do you like better? It'll have both
No. Which
views,
one do
right?
you like better? We're not going to develop both.
Oh, I thought it was that when you like right there where you're at, where
Mhm.
it's goals in the first table, the first three rows up there a little closer to the top. So like if you I thought there would be like a link says employment to become a CDL driver. Like if you clicked on that, then the screen automatically jumps down to to that view so you can expand and collapse the details. So I'm sorry, I thought, I mean, I was kind of sure you had said you were looking for opinion on the two different views, but I still thought that um they would be together. So I'm glad I asked. I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah, we'll go with one or the other. They both will function to where you can add goals and objectives. I'm going to show you next here in just a few minutes what will happen when we actually like click this, or we would click edit on this, and the edit screens and the add button screens and how those will work.
Oh, okay,
But
thanks.
yeah, we're looking for opinions on for 2.0, how we want to see this. So far, we've gotten strong preference towards this more visually friendly one. It's a little more modern, it's easier to look at, and we
But you
have
can
the ability to print in a
you can
way that you
expand
can
and
read it.
collapse it though, right? Where it says,
Yep.
I'm
So
sorry, I didn't mean
these
to cut you
little
off, but where it says
arrows
employment. Oh, okay. Then that
will
might not.
close the details, and then you'll just see it like this. But if you need to print it with all the details, you click show all details, or you can manually click
Oh,
each one open, and then you'll see everything.
okay, got it. Then that might not be too bad. I know I hate to go against the grain and seem really
No, no, it's
oh God.
fine.
And admittedly, probably cold and industrial, but just I guess just maybe creature habit, like what we're used to. I at first glance, I kind of prefer the structure of the table view. I know I'm like definitely the exception and not the rule on that one. But
No, I gotta agree with you. I was just waiting for a chance to say something.
oh, sorry, Chris.
From a training standpoint and having been a career planner and then worked up to administrative part from training, from trying to keep track of compliance in terms of 90-day reviews of things, of goals and so forth. I'm looking at it and I am also preferring the table view because I'm afraid that in the narrative, yeah, it looks more personable and everything. But when you're data managing, you're not necessarily worried about being more personable. You're worrying about tracking stuff and managing your data and putting your information in. And so keeping track of things in a more linear, blocky format seems easier to me from the career planner perspective than trying to find, unless you're going to do something in that other part that highlights when things are due or has some sort of very clear, I just don't, I'm afraid of things getting lost. So that would be of course, we'll do whatever it comes up with, but
Yeah.
I just did a career development session, a professional development session for our staff. And given the questions that they asked and things we were talking about, the table view seems more easy to keep track of.
Okay. So I have 4 folks so far that are leaning towards the table view. And I have 1 towards the more visual view. I have a few folks who haven't said anything
I mean, I
that I'd
can,
like to hear from.
you know, chew on it as they say, or sleep on it. I mean, I can show, maybe if I can take some screen grabs and, show the people that would be using it day to day. Because I mean, there's, there's pros and cons to both. And like Crystal said, it's kind of, maybe it sometimes depends on, you can't please everybody because it depends on who's, different users that are using the system for different purposes, tracking, doing the enrollment, doing the, they might, prefer one view, to another, yeah, I guess maybe it would depend on that, but, I'm kind of on team table. I didn't mean to start a revolt and get
No.
everybody to
This is
they're
exactly
all
what
defecting.
this is exactly what we need though. Because you guys and your staff are the end users, so we want to make sure to get that feedback in as we're looking through this. And we can always is like a V2, we probably, as I said, won't have time in MVP to have multiple views. But as a future enhancement, we can always like add on some kind of visual flow here. Maybe not with as much detail because we have it all above. Now we don't want to confuse them by having multiple ways to go about doing things, but have it spit out after you do it in the blocky view, something a little more visual, that can be used, down the road. Monique, you said you like the outline view. Is this the outline view you're talking about here, the visual one? I'm assuming.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Hey, Lydia, just a question. One of the considerations that we have for future build out is to allow the participant to see their career plan. So do we need to consider the layout from that perspective, or would there be like a separate build out for the participant to see?
There'll be a separate one for the participant to see. WorkNet currently uses one and it is a lot different. It's much more user friendly
Yeah.
for like an individual to read. So that will be something that we do outside of this and we won't be stuck to anything based on what we choose here today.
Sounds good, thanks.
I just want to add that I like the idea of the color coding, like that would be whichever, if it's the table or the outline form. I think the color coding is really good, because that just gives you a quick bird's eye view of, hey, this is approaching your date, or hey, this is over, you need to fix it, or like if you're done with it, you could gray it out, so that way there's no confusion about what needs to be done. So I do like that idea.
Okay.
So like use the color coding. So objectives is go down a little bit more there. Like right there where your key is. So the goals are in the blue, the objectives above are in orange, and the activities and services are in red that way. Because right now they're all blue in the table format.
I thought she was saying like if plan date was like overdue, make that date red or that row red. And then if it was completed, like make it gray.
Yeah.
Either one of those things is great, any of those.
Okay. So possibly more color, use the key color coding even up here. So things are,
Yeah, I think that's easy for people to understand, whether you use the table or, whatever, the stoplight, red, yellow, green, that works for us, I think.
So a question I have that might kind of help make a decision. So all the details, when we set a goal, right, and we set objectives, all of the details that would go into it would be on this chart, right? Or
yes.
is there, so when you go to, edit, to add something or add something, these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns of data is what you're going to be putting in
No.
for the goals. So it's not going to be like a narrative format where people are writing paragraphs on how they're going to achieve a certain goal or objective.
Yeah, so let's actually look at that because there are more than this is auto-populated by the system. There's more than just these when editing, but we're only pulling the relevant ones, but you can see all of them when you go into edit. So let's actually take a look at that. And I'm going to talk through this with you guys because this is exciting, I think, way, and we've kind of talked about this before, of trying to help guide folks to use appropriate goals and objectives when working with the customers, because we did hear during other discovery that sometimes we see a lot of objectives as goals or things just not clearly defined or things are repeated over and over and over because they're just not sure what to use. So what we are looking at doing is when we're adding goals and objectives, we're going to have buckets right here. We'll have employment goals, education goals, training goals, supportive service goals, follow-up goals, and other. And when they pick those, each of these different buckets, we are going to have some defined goals and objectives that would fall in there that they could pick from. So if I come in here and I'm adding a goal and I say it's an employment goal, it's going to say select an employment goal, and I'll have the ability to pick from a list of different goals. That's what the Excel sheet is we're going to look at here in a bit. And I can pick from those, or I can say like, this doesn't match. This is other, I want to add a new one. We're still talking through the add new, so we're not going to get into that today. But I can pick from a list or say other and put in something else. And then say I pick one from a standard list of obtain unsubsidized full-time employment as a insert occupation. Then when I pick that, the system's gonna know, hey, I have a field here that I need them to define. It's not just standard. They have to actually pick something. So we'll either have them type in the occupation or pick it from a SOP code. We need to map all that out still. Right now, we're just working on the lists. And then we'll have to get into how each of these different items would be populated. But the system will know in these situations that it needs to include a specific data point for this item that they also fill out. And then it'll ask them the planned start date, the planned end date, the actual start date, the actual end date, and then the status. And then the status will probably default to not started because we know they're creating the plan. They haven't necessarily started any of these yet, but they will have the ability to pick different statuses. And then the programs this goal is associated with. So this will be based off of the applications they have started. They'll be able to pick adult or youth. We're not seeing dislocated worker because in this example, a customer does not have a dislocated worker application. Once we start to expand IWDS 2.0 to the non-wheelable programs like our JTEDs and our CJAs, if those are applicable, those would show here too if the customer has applications for those. So that way it's intuitive because we don't want to just have like a list of 10 items and only 2 apply to the customer and everything else is grayed out. That's just unnecessary clutter on the page. So it will actually look and pull in what the customer programs could be. And then here in red, we have term because we wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about your use of term and if we need to really define like what does long-term, intermediate, and short-term mean? Do those need to be defined with like date parameters around them of like if this is going to be over a year, it's long-term. If it's between this X number of months and X number of months, it's intermediate, I think. And then if it's fewer than 3 months, for example, I'm not saying that's what it'll be, but if it's fewer than 3 months, then it's short-term. And have those based off of anything, or is it more general? That's kind of what we were thinking, but wanted to get your thoughts of, it really depends on the customer, what's long-term and short-term and intermediate, and how these might be selected. So we wanted your guys' input on how you're using terms and the need to further define that or leave it more open and based on the customer. So again, I'm going to pause right here and just get some initial feedback, and then I'll show you the objectives one, and then we're going to look at this Excel sheet that really breaks down how these different preset items would kind of come together.
Well, I can say for LWIA 7, we do have this, and so we have our own little procedure for the IEP. And we have what you just said, Olivia. The short term is 1 to 3. I think intermediate is over 6, and long term is 6 to over something like those, similar to what you said those time frames are. We do kind of use it like that. But I also want to just, I don't know if this is going to throw the whole conversation off. I'm not trying to do that, but for us, we only tell them they could pick, the adults can only pick one goal and the youth can pick 2 goals because, well, I think that's also how we had it set up, and that's how it is in Career Connect. You can only pick one. So if there's going to be more than one, that's fine. I guess that's just a training issue, but we only have one goal as employment for adults, and then for youth, obviously we have education and employment. But and for as far as you're asking for the terms, we said something similar what you had.
Okay. Yeah, and Laura, you're on. I don't mean to like throw you in here, but
Go ahead.
Sorry.
we are looking at the potential to kind of redefine that career plan policy, because right now a lot
Yes.
of folks are just doing exactly what you said.
Mhm.
But with 2.0, we might be changing that up a little bit, Christy, because we are potentially looking to them to have more than just one, like current one or two if they're.
Yes, and that's true. And what the goals, the main goals are employment and education and training for youth. But the other ones are ones that we feel are necessary, that are around supportive services and follow up so that they're aware, the customers are aware upfront that follow up is going to happen. So you just set that goal. And don't necessarily limit it. So they're still only probably going to get a couple goals, or depending on the customer, it could be several goals depending on what the services that they need. And you'll see the list in the Excel spreadsheet here in a minute. And so that might help make more sense of it. So
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I was just like, I mean, obviously we'll have to train our agencies differently, and that's fine. But I just wanted to bring that up before we got any.
Yeah. Any other comments around terms and trying to give some time frames around those or leave those open?
Yes. Okay, this is Monique from LWIL 24, and I think that the idea that you were expressing as far as giving the time frame with the maybe short, immediate, intermediate, and long-term goals would be something great to have, because as it stands for us, we only have like the short-term goals and then the long-term goals. Short-term meaning, of course, getting into your training program, and then long-term goals is more geared toward completing that program and obtaining self-sufficient income. So I think having those different, the 3 that you mentioned, incorporated in that would kind of, it helps with IEP, it helps with a lot of the other things that that's within the guidelines for us to follow.
Perfect.
We also do just short and long term, and that's because in the e-policy manual, it specifies short and long term. We don't really characterize intermediate. So for us, when we train staff, we say short term is anything less than 6 months and long term is over that, and just use that as a cutoff point.
Okay. Do you like the idea of defining and having the 3 then, Crystal?
Yeah, I guess again, my big concern is making sure that everything crosswalks back to the e-policy. So if they're going to say intermediate as something that's in there, then fine. Otherwise, I don't know that it's super necessary. But again, we'll do whatever and train people appropriately. But
Yeah, I think the question I might have asked it not great, and Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, but do we want policy to define term lengths or just leave it open as short, intermediate, and
I think if
long?
intermediate is in the policy, it's under the IEP number 5, short term, long term, and then number 3 is intermediate. Um, or those are the goals, short term, long term, and then intermediate action steps or objectives. I see where you're saying yes. So right now it's short term, long term. We can change the policy if the group feels that there should be some intermediate, or we can leave it as is and only have those two. That's up for discussion, but either way, the system and the policy will ultimately mirror each other.
Mm-hmm.
Just a question, I can't remember in the e-policy if it defines a specific time period for what's considered
It-
short-term and what's considered long-term.
It does not.
And
I'm looking at
that's
it
my
now.
question, right? And that's my
Yeah.
question here is because if we're gonna do, just say short-term, long-term, because I mean, like I think every area probably has different definitions of what they consider short-term and long-term. And depending on, goals, whatever, objectives and things like that, someone could feel like a goal or objective is short term would be 3 months, or even a 1 year, especially when we talk about training. Like in our area, we say short term is year or less, um, and anything over that would be long term. But I think that kind of needs to be defined a little bit on what we would consider a short term and long term. Because I mean, and then you have like CDL trainings, which is 6 weeks long. So that's really short term, right? So if I think if we're going to have, I think it's good to have this short term, long term goal or identification on it, but I think it needs to probably define the length of time that it would be.
Perfect. I think we, based on what I'm hearing, is a lot of LWS are just defining this on their own, which I think is a strong indicator that we probably want to define it.
Exactly.
And yeah, so we'll go that way. If anybody has a strong reason why they wouldn't want that, I would love to hear. But based on what I've heard so far, I think we've kind of figured out what way we want to go with that. All right. So before I go into the before I go into the objective screen, because I do think giving you guys some context will be helpful, I want to show you this Excel sheet. So what we've been doing is working through listings of standard goals and objectives we would like the system to include. Every one, though, will include an other. So if it's not in the list, we are not going to limit your career planners and say, too bad, you can't add it. It has to be one of these. They'll always have the ability to say other because we know there will be customers out there with different situations that are going to need very specific goals or objectives set to them. The purpose of these lists is to capture our common high level things that we see a lot of so that they're in there. And one, we can do reporting on them. Two, we can help guide our career planners and minimize their admin time of having to constantly type in the same things. They can just pick it from a list. Um, this is not final. We are still doing some work through this. So I'm not going to be sharing the full list with you today, but it will be coming very soon. We have a little bit more work to do. I wanted to get it in front of you, get you guys thinking about this. And I also want you to start thinking about who from your staff you'd want to get this list in front of. That might be more versed in the goals and objectives settings who can give good input because when we do send this out, it will be a homework assignment where we're wanting your thoughts and feedback on this. So I'm just going to kind of walk through this at a high level. These aren't final, so I'm not going to get into all the details, but want to give you guys an idea of how these will work. So we have various goals. The ID is just so I can map these on the back end over on this screen to how they all kind of fit together. These are kind of our more visual breakdowns. But we have a goal of gain unsubsidized employment as an occupation / job title or career cluster. When we see these brackets, that means we will have a data input field. Oh, hold on, wrong thing. We will have a data input field that would, like, once it's picked on the add edit modal, that data input field would display for this specific goal for more customized information to show. So then when we show the goal, like on the screen behind the modal, the listing, it would say like obtain unsubsidized full-time employment as and then whatever you input here. So it would show the actual goal, not friend's occupation once it's complete, like added. And then for each of these, so you can see this is a goal, this is an employment goal. We have it for all programs. We are wanting a way, whether it be through training or if we can come up with a way that the system can display this in a user-friendly manner, the purpose of these goals. So kind of to help our career planners understand why this goal would be set. And then each of these goals will have a list of objectives that tie to them. So when that goal is picked and you go to add an objective, you'll get a listing of potential objectives you could choose along with one that says other. So if they need another objective, they can add that one as well. And you can see some of these reuse various objectives. So like goals 1 and 2, both are using objectives 1 and 3. So some of these will be reused, but we also tried to make these very specific to the goal at hand. So we have several of these that have been entered for the different items. Some of them we're still kind of thinking through. And then for our education, if you picked, I'm doing an education goal, you can see this is different category. We're doing the same thing. So we're going to do this for employment, education, training. That's what we've gotten through, and we're still working through the supportive service and follow-up breakdowns for goals and objectives. So I'm going to bounce back over to our mock-ups. So that is those goals that we saw would be what would show here on this screen. After you pick employment, you would see that listing. Did somebody say something? I'm sorry.
For Monday. If you can Monday, if not, then.
All right. Some background noise. Then so when we come to add objectives, the first thing you would do is you would say, I'm adding an objective for whatever goal. I would pull in the goals that you've added, and you would pick that specific goal you're adding an objective for, and then it would know, oh, okay, here are some possible objectives that you could add tied to this goal or add others. So in this example, we did the unsubsidized. So we had this goal. It would give me this list of objectives plus other that I could pick from in that drop down. And then once you pick your objective, it would do the same thing. Is there a specific data entry point I need to add? This is a bad example. Right here, this is not an objective we currently have listed. It was a mock-up we did early on. But if there was let's do this just so there's no confusion. If there was a data input field, the system would give the user the appropriate displays. Then you would do your start and end date. And you would do your status and you would pick the program that's associated with it.
Just a comment on the Excel spreadsheet, when you had the goals and then the objectives that's listed underneath there. Possible suggestion is to like make each of those objectives singular. meaning like that first one where it says develop revised resume and cover letter tailored, because not every employer now requires a cover letter. And so that may not be even part of their objective to develop one, but they may develop resume. Or
Okay.
they might have a good resume already, but they suck at interviewing. So we need to develop their interviewing skills. And so because to separate those types of things out, so it's the objectives are singular and not multiple.
Okay.
And then one last comment. When you set the objective and you're putting the start and end dates, will this 2.0 system give some sort of a ping or something for that customer's record where it says, hey, this is overdue, or this is coming, like this is overdue, do you have a status on it type of thing?
Yeah. Sorry, you made me think of something else as you were just saying that. We will be able to indicate on a dashboard like overdue goals, overdue objectives based on their plan dates being passed and no actual start date being entered. So if I had a planned start date of this objective starting on December 1st, I can now add this customer to a dashboard report of overdue because it's December 12th and they don't have any start date entered in that they've actually started this objective. We'll also put date parameters. So objectives fall within goal dates and so we don't want objectives that go longer than the goal. If they do, they'll get like a little message that says, hey, this is outside of your planned goals date, so they can expand that as well. And they obviously need to fall within the participation period. Their goals can't start before they were enrolled.
There's something else I wanted to ask that maybe you said it and I missed it. The goals and objectives and all this is all tied to the IEP, right?
Yes, this is building the IEP.
Okay. Okay,
Yep.
so having said that, if I think it's great to have, because right now we don't have any kind of notices that say, something's due or whatever. So that's fantastic. But is there also going to be like an overall IEP review thing that lets you know in 90 days you haven't touched any of them? Like, because that's a separate thing from the goals. You know what I mean?
Yes. So we have do I have it in here? No, we know that the IEP has to be reviewed every 90 days, and we'll probably have another tab for that. So we're gonna support the ability to allow customers to, and I don't have it in my mock-up yet. We haven't quite got there, but we are gonna support the ability for customers and career planners to digitally sign the career plans once they've been established, and if any significant changes are made in which would require the customer or career planner to sign again, that'll be supported digitally. Also, we'll support manual processes, knowing that everybody doesn't always want to do things digitally. And then the 90-day review, we have talked about that. That'll probably be an action item that triggers every 90 days, as well as like a dashboard for knowing like it's approaching. And then we'll have I'm assuming it'll be its own tab in the system. Or we'll include it. We can even include it on like the top of a page for career planners to, because if I remember correctly, the customer is not required to sign it the 90 days. It's just that the career planner has to go in and say that they have reviewed everything and it is still accurate. Is that correct?
Right. So, so is that so then my next question to follow that along then is if if you do go in here and you have one of these goals and one singular item objective under that goal that has had attention paid to it, updated, completed, success, whatever, is that going to stop your 90-day ping on your IEP as a whole?
We have not talked that through if that would suffice to like say that you've done a review and been in. That's something we'll have to talk through to determine if that meets the policy need of the 90-day review.
Okay.
If it does, then yeah, we won't overburden the end user to say, hey, you also have to come in and click this button every 90 days just
Right.
for the sake of clicking a button.
Right. Okay. Just curious.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. And I'm glad to be thinking about this kind of stuff too.
Wha- One other thing is, so currently we still have to keep paper files for the customers or participants. So is this gonna be all printable?
Yes, this will all be printable and digital and so sorry, I was trying to find I had done some work on some printing stuff, but I think it was in a different mock-up. So you can see we have a printable summary.
Okay.
So you can always we'll have a way where it takes the career plan and is able to print it out. We haven't quite got into the format, but you can print out everything that you would need in order to be able to like sign and have enough view of everything to say be able to say yes, this is good, and the career planner say yes, this is good. We'll also have an update log. So we know that there's some modification forms whenever changes are made to the career plan. Our intention is to move away from that. And for the update log, when you're changing and editing the career plan, we're going to be logging all of what you're changing. In specific instances, we may have a pop-up, like you go to change something, and we're going to have a pop-up that says, you have to tell us why you're changing it. And we'll tie that to the log of that action item so that we can log all of the changes when they were made by and who made them and when signatures were obtained and who they were obtained by in the update log, so that we can cover the modification form stuff that's filled out now when career plans are changed. And we'll work with, and we have talked with the monitoring team on all of that to make sure we have all of our bases covered, by trying to move towards automating as much of that as possible.
I have a quick question. Maybe you said this. When you had those lists of the objectives for each goal, are you saying that they don't have to pick all of those? They could just pick a couple of them.
Right, whichever
And if,
apply to them.
and then if they have something that they want to add, they just say other and add whatever it is, like a customized one.
Yeah, we would have like they would pick where am I at? They would pick other here and then this would just be like it was the like select an objective other and it would just be a text field where they just type in whatever
Okay.
their goal would be or objective would be.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
But everybody would be required to have at least one employment goal. And then youth would have the education goal with it.
Okay.
I have this is something we're just wanting to get your eyes on. We're going to be sending homework out probably early January where we will give you a listing. I'll put it in another Excel sheet that folks can comment on. But we'll send this to you guys to kind of have you start taking a closer look at this listing and get your thoughts and feedback on it. But for right now, I don't have any homework and I have shown you guys at a high level where we're at. A lot of the things we talked about, like the signatures, the services, the printing and update log, that's what's coming next, and that's going to be done by Taylor and myself. So we'll have different BAs getting back in front of you with more career plan stuff. And as we get this finalized, we'll move it in development and then it'll be in UAT. So you'll want to start thinking about who you're going to want to look at this from a career planner perspective for both the homework, which is the Excel sheet that we'll send out, and then later down the road, the UAT work where we're going to have them start getting in and building goals and objectives and making sure everything makes sense. Does anybody have any other questions, comments, concerns?
All of the stuff that you were showing us on adding the goals and objectives and everything, does it work the same regardless of whether it's the table or the narrative?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Anything else?
I think it looks good. I mean, for us, it's a little, it's similar to what we're already doing, so I think it's on point. It looks good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really liking the idea of this. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Does this, so let me just, again, this is just because we just did a professional development on career planning stuff. Questions that I get most of the time is in the assessment narrative section of IWDS currently. You know, it's sort of a free for all, you just, whatever goes in there, and trying to standardize that as much as possible. And I think that's what this is attempting to do, right? Or is this separate from what we think of currently as assessment narratives? Because that's where you put the goals and everything on the way we do the IEPs currently. You have to put them in the assessment narratives because that's the only place there is for it. So is this taking the place of that, or in addition to, or how does that fit together?
Yes, it is taking the place of it because in the current system, there is no way to develop a career plan. It's just a paper document. So this is doing what the narrative part that you're talking about. Now on the assessments, when you put in the assessments, there will still be a place for you to put any, the career planner to put any thoughts or you know, from reviewing the results of those assessments and what they think that means and what if, oh, this means they scored X, Y, and Z, I need to make sure they get A, B, and C, and then you go over to the career plan and put it in. I think also that they have talked about tying the assessments with this career plan, but that's further down the road. I think Olivia and Lisa's talked about that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Well, I will go ahead and give you guys back almost a little over 20 minutes of your early morning, late morning back. As we have more of this develop, we'll be sending out emails, getting back in front of you guys on these calls, and getting homework out. So I really appreciate your time and your guys' thoughts and feedback today. And we did record this, so if anybody wants to kind of show and get feedback from other staff, we'll have the recording posted on our transition page that you can access within 24 hours. So thank you guys all so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.